welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessica. I will be your host today of the official podcast of Syosset Library. And we have a guest who is on a completely different time zone and wrote a book that is going to take you away to yet another time zone and make you feel like you're on vacation. But it is also a thriller. So it'll keep your heart pumping and it'll keep you kind of guessing as to what's going on. Without any further introduction, would you please introduce yourself and tell our audience about your book?
Hello, I am Lucy Clarke. I'm the author of 7 psychological thrillers. And my most recent one that I'm here to talk about today publishes today in the US, and it's called One of the Girls. And it is set predominantly on a small Greek island, fictional island called Agios. And the premise is very simple. 6 British women go away for a long weekend, what we in the UK call a hen party, and I believe is the equivalent of a bachelorette. And
yes,
they're there to celebrate Lexi's upcoming wedding. And they hire this gorgeously remote clifftop villa. The scene is set to just have a really brilliant time with 6 women, and everything looks set to be fantastic until a body is found on the rocks below the villa. And that is where the novel takes us, and the journey of these women in what hopefully is a very transportive and beautiful setting of Greece.
I wanted to do nothing but eat Greek food while I was reading your book. And part of it was stress eating because I was like, what's going to happen? And the rest of it was me being like, oh, that actually sounds delicious. Where is the best Greek food in the area for me to, have like a little menu of the food that they're like to eat with the women. The book was very good, and one of the things that I have to stress is there is obviously there is no spoiler in saying that there's a body, because you know that immediately from reading the book. But the question is, whose body is it? And really, you do such a good job of keeping us guessing. I was not expecting it to go in the direction it went in. And the women were all very interesting reads. You have Lexi, who is the bride. She was sort of a former wild child dancer. She's a yoga teacher now, and she's eddying Ed. She's marrying Ed. I would normally like edit something like that, but I kind of feel like that adds a little bit of character to these these morning interviews where I haven't finished my cup of coffee yet. So she is marrying Ed. She is she has her own things going on, but you don't find out exactly what those are for a while. But she really just wants a nice, quiet weekend. Her childhood best friend is Bella, who seems like almost jealous that her friend is quieting down, maybe slowing down a little bit more than she wants.
That's exactly it. You've really hit the nail on the head there. I think Bella is that friend that perhaps we've all got, the real party girl who really says she's there for a good time, and she stirs things up and gets things exciting, but actually she's got her own sort of motivations and vulnerabilities as well. She was an interesting character to write, because I think she's the one that people will either love or loathe.
I feel like even if you don't love her, you know her, and you have that feeling of I do love you, but I really wish that like you could love me as I am now, and not keep trying to call back for a time that was perfectly great, but I'm happy to be done with.
That's right. She keeps on trying to pull Bella back to the person she was in her party years, and she's just not prepared to accept, I suppose, that that Lexi, this bride to be, is going in a different direction. And I think whilst that comes across as her being a difficult friend, it actually comes from a place of fear that she's being left behind. And I think that's something we can relate to. I know certainly I can, with friends at different stages of my life, when I think, oh my God, but we used to be like this, and now you're doing something, and how does that make my world now? So she's at that stage in her life where she's not got the confidence and the grounding in herself to be able to be happy in a genuine way for Lexi, and as you said, as the Lexi she is now at this point in time.
Right. And as I mentioned, all of these women have other things going on. And one of these things is currently affecting Bella's relationship with Fen, who is another woman on this trip. Fen being probably, other than, I guess, Eleanor, who's Ed's sister, the closest to being sort of on the outside of the friends. Although I think that everybody feels like they're an outsider at one point in this group. But yeah, so Fen is Bella's girlfriend, and whatever it is, Lexi loves Fen, but there's something, she senses there's something up with them. And this all ties into other things, and possibly one of the reasons why Bella is just so like not 100% happy with change. Then as I mentioned before, there's Eleanor, who's Ed's sister, who, like really does not know anybody but Lexi. And she had her own tragedy in her life. And then there's Robin, who my heart kind of went to, because she's a mom and she's away from her son for the first time.
Right.
And yeah, and she has sort of a weird history with Bella and Lexi herself. So that's really just like, right? Did I get everybody?
I'm so impressed, because it's hard with 6 women to succinctly sum up who they are, and I think you did it beautifully. And I feel like with Eleanor, she is the person who's perhaps, all of the other women reflect Lexi in that they're parts of her through whether they're childhood friends or more recent friends. Whereas Eleanor is that family tie. So she's the groom's sister, as you said. And she's got a very difficult role in the story, because she's come out on a hen weekend. She's not a sociable, dynamic extrovert like many of the others. So just that social anxiety for her is tough in itself, but she's also nursing a huge tragedy and grief that she lost her fiance only a year ago. So to be out there celebrating someone else's love story is just painful for her. So everyone's coming looking for this weekend, this sort of bachelorette weekend, to answer different needs for them. Some need a release, like Bella wants to just party and be reminded of who Lexi used to be in her kind of party days. Robin, the mother who's left a baby for the first time. I've been on hen weekends where I remember taking my breast pump with me, because I left my little like 1-year-old at home, and just finding it a real wrench, actually. So I really related to Robin, and everyone's got their own reasons for what they need this weekend to be. And I think those reasons sort of coming together create quite a few simmering tensions beneath the surface of the group.
I actually did forget someone. I forgot Anna. Poor Anna, who knows Lexi through yoga, and is kind of like the new friend, who the old friends are like, you're this good of a friend that you're coming on the hen weekend. But yeah, so it really is, it's great in that you get that then and now perspective, and the alternating perspectives that really work very well for psychological thrillers. But you also, like, the then and now part is like you sort of get snippets of people talking about something that happened, some tragedy involved with the body, from a later perspective, and you're not really sure whether they're talking to cops about this, amongst each other, if this is sort of monologuing. And there's just a really good sense of tension. Like, there's many moments you're like, oh my God, is it her? Is she the one who's going to die? Because I actually kind of like her. I don't want it to be her, but I also don't want it to be her. And one thing I loved was, within the tension, you really did a good job of capturing just like what like female relationships, especially on like what I like to call like an extended sleepover. When you're a kid or a teenager and you're doing a sleepover, just like between two women or two people, it's one thing. But then like when you throw other people into the mix, it becomes something completely different. And this is a whole weekend of women with their secrets. And I guess Lexi is the one that has the least.
That's right, the bride. She's
a
actually
secret.
quite clean cut.
Right? She has a secret, but I mean, it's as
Yeah.
far as they go, they're
Tame.
not, minuscule. So like when you were really writing in the different perspectives, how did you make sure that everybody sort of had a distinct voice? Was like somebody really just calling to you more than others?
I had a really crazy writing experience with one of the girls because I normally plan my novels quite thoroughly before I start writing. But one of the girls I actually wrote during our first lockdown in the UK, and I'd handed in a draft of my previous book, The Castaways, and I just had 3 weeks while I was waiting for my edit notes to arrive. And I've been thinking about setting something on a Hen Weekend for some time, just because, as we've discussed, the emotional sort of territory of it, of discussing women and their complicated relationships, just felt like, oh, this could be an interesting stage. So I just planned the novel for 2 days. I decided it would be 6 women, it would be Greece, a clifftop villa. One of them would die. I didn't know who, I didn't know why. And I wrote down maybe 5 things about each of the women, and I just began writing after these 2 days of planning. And I inhabited each of their voices as I wrote, chapter by chapter. And the novel, I'm normally quite a slow writer. A novel would take me 18 months to write from idea to completion. And this, I wrote the first draft of it in 17 days. And it just flowed and came quickly. And I think it just was because each of these women landed so firmly and clearly in my mind that they sort of revealed their secrets to me and the complications as I sort of wrote. And it was just so different to the way I normally write, which is much more planned and plotted. And it was an absolute joy. And I think it was partly because of lockdown and wanting to be transported somewhere else and hanging out with my friends when I was actually locked in my house, and couldn't go anywhere. So I do wonder if that was why their voices came so smoothly and so distinctly, when that isn't often the case with my writing. It takes a lot of work.
Tell me about the food. Oh man, I just wanted, like I said this earlier, I just wanted to eat all the Greek food. And there is a lot of talk about Greek food and tavernas. And did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, absolutely. Oh my
Yay.
goodness.
Yeah, the different like dipping like olives and the tzatziki sauce and oh man, the pitas. I just was so hungry and curious while I was reading the book. Are you a fan of Greek food? Have you been there?
Yes. So I have a Greek family on the island of Kos. So all throughout my childhood, our holidays as a family have always been to Greece. And I absolutely love Greek food. It's without doubt my favorite food. I love the tzatziki. I love saganaki, which is this type of melted deep fried cheese that is just insane. And I love all of the typical things of the Greek salad with the sort of, glistening olives and just big blocks of feta, and sat and eating and enjoyed outdoors in a taverna, on the edge of the sea. Like, for me, I absolutely love my food. So when I was writing it, I would make sure for lunch I would have Greek food myself. So sort of vine leaves stuffed with like fried rice, and just, it's lovely. And on my desk, I actually had fresh herbs of oregano and thyme, so that I could sort of have my writing room infused with the smells of Greece, so that it really did transport me during the writing of it, and therefore I was sort of able to bring it to life perhaps a little more vividly than I would have otherwise been able to.
Yeah, I really felt like I mean, I can't say this enough. I felt like I was there with them, and I was, maybe like the seventh girl, and just like, uh-huh. Oh, that's interesting. What's going on? So wow, what an effective way of writing. That's so cool. Yeah. So, um, when you were sort of like thinking just about the directions this was going to go, did you know who the body was when you first put your I guess pen to paper, but probably not. You're probably typing.
I was typing, but no, I didn't know. When I set out, I just thought it's impossible to sort of plan for me who would be the killer and who would get killed, because when you start, you only know your characters as you travel through the story. So I thought, as I do that, as I travel, they will unfold, and then it will, explain itself to me. So in the first draft, this one that I wrote very quickly, I had someone different who was killed to the final version. And when I killed them off, I felt so upset about it, because I didn't want that particular woman to die, that I knew I had the bones of something really fun that would work with one of the girls, but I knew that what I had thought was actually not what works. And I, without giving anything away, had to revisit what I could do to solve that problem. And I think that that does often happen in fiction, when you come to care about a character so much that you realize, no, this isn't the person that's going to be killed, it's got to be someone else. So it changed between the first and the final draft.
Uh, Another thing that I really loved, I mean, again, like I actually have a really big soft spot for Eleanor. Like I feel extremely close to somebody who maybe is just not, like doesn't know like the cool thing to say, and is like feel. But Robin also felt like she was always the third wheel, which I loved too. So really there was just something, if not relatable, just knowable about all the women. But I just liked the different roads everything took. Do you read a lot of thrillers yourself, or are you like, do you read outside of the genre because you feel like you don't want to absorb too much of how others write thrillers?
I read really widely, and I absolutely do read thrillers all the time. As most writers are quite prolific readers as well. So I love thrillers by people like Megan Abbott and Jane Harper. I love, and Sarah Pearce, and just big thriller writers. But also I love to read widely, and I adore literary fiction. I love one of my absolute favorite writers, or two of my favorite writers, are Tim Winton and Maggie O'Farrell. I think they're both just such brilliant writers. And I also read some more sort of general women's fiction that might fall under, I don't know if it would fall so strongly under romance, but and I think there's so much to learn from reading widely, because my thrillers, psychological thrillers, are, the body count is never very high, and the reasons for the deaths in my novels are never at the hands of a psychopath. It's always to do with an emotional reason, an emotional connection or a disconnection. And so I think that I like to draw on, just different experiences that we all have as humans. And I suppose it's things that maybe we experience in our everyday life, and then asking that question that pushes it further and further, but what if, and how far would we all go? So there's nothing that I won't read during the writing of a novel. It never puts me off. I only learn as I'm reading.
Thank you so much. This was amazing. This book is a summer read. This is a beach read. I think this is definitely a beach read. It's something that you can get lost in. I don't know. Have you been away since the pandemic? I mean, for me, I've only been maybe like a state away, but like I haven't like gone on a away vacation. Have you, or was this your virtual vacation?
Well, I have been on two vacations, and the first was to Norway, which is the setting for my next novel, The Hike. And then over Easter, I was in Thailand for 2 weeks for a very exciting reason, which my third thriller, The Blue, is being filmed as a TV series by Paramount Plus. So I went on set to see it being filmed, and I took my family and my kids, and it was the first time. I've got two young children. It was the first time they'd ever stayed in a hotel, and it was just absolutely, yeah, magical to be away and yeah, to travel during these times, but also, of course, to see something that I'd written reimagined for screen. So it was a real dream. So as far as vacations go, I feel I'm very lucky.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that must have been really wild. And congratulations on the Paramount Plus. Is it going to be a movie or a series?
It's a 7-part series. It's directed by Hans Herbert, who did, I don't know if it's huge in the US, but it has been here. He directed The Serpent. And yeah,
that was such a good series. It was like, talk about like a slow burn.
yes.
I mean, you know, you never really thought staring at somebody's aviator glasses could be that scary, right?
I know, you're thinking, oh my God, what is going on behind those glasses? But yeah, so I'm really excited that the show is going to be absolutely incredible. The scripting is insane. And yeah, with Hans kind of at the helm, it really is more than I could sort of dream of, actually. It's going to be exciting. So I think that comes out, I don't know exactly when, but it will be out in 2023.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Listeners, check this book out. Bring it to the beach. You're on vacation, grab it from a bookshop, stop by your library and take it with you, download it, whatever. Just read one of the girls. It's great. So thank you so much. Once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. Our guest was
Lucy Clarke.
And we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.